Hey gang, what's up? Aaron right here, Kennedy Looney. So we have all the Western premiers lined up here in a row. Looks pretty strange. Let's watch and see what they have to say. Are they going to separate? I hope not. Let's take a look at this.
Yes, my question is for all the premiers. You've come together today as a united Western Front, but there have been premiers of several provinces where there's been a lot of separation talk. I'm curious how that affects the strength of Western unity.
Thank you. I can start with that. So I've been sitting at the premier's table for about a year and a half now, and I can say that I'm proud to be part of this table, and I'm really heartened to be part of this table because when we come together, we are a united Team Canada working for the benefit of all Canadians. I've seen that at every meeting I've been at, and I know there's some discontent around the country, and that's always going to be the case. But I can assure everyone that our working relationship is solid, and we're all moving in the same direction for the benefit of Canada.
Go ahead with a follow-up, please, Emily.
Yes, this question is for Premier Smith. There was 2 protests last night from Northwest Territories residents who are concerned about legislation in a province where they don't live and they have no influence over, but that legislation is going to affect them. I'm curious, what would you say to them about what that legislation says about Alberta's relationship with the Northwest Territories?
Well, if you're talking about the policies we put in place to protect children and their right to preserve choices to make as adults, so that we do not allow for puberty blockers or surgery for minors, but we do allow for both of those things for gender reassignment starting at age 16. So it shouldn't impact Northwest Territories residents at all. In fact, I think Northwest Territories has their own policies about how they would treat minors in those circumstances, but anyone who would require treatment in Alberta will continue to get it as normal.
And I guess what about the concerns about separation?
I have said that we want a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. That's what I have said from the beginning. It was my very first bill. And I think, in fact, if Prime Minister Mark Carney acts on the ideas in our communique today, that it would take the wind right out of any effort. The frustration that Alberta has been that it's been a lot easier to do business with our southern neighbor than it's been to do business across the country. And what I've seen since November is a real spirit of esprit de corps among the premiers, talking about how we can help each other, how we can trade with each other, how we can work together to create new economic corridors so we can all get our various products to markets. And if we can find some support from the federal government on that, I think that's all that the people of Alberta have been looking for.
I would maybe add to that just a little bit on some of the information that's in the communique here today as well, and how some of this work that is happening today on behalf of the Western and Northern premiers, but work you'll also see at the Council of Federation table and ultimately at the First Minister's table as well. There is a feeling, and I'll speak from the perspective of Saskatchewan just briefly at the beginning. There is a feeling of alienation among many people in the province where I live. However, there is also a strong affinity to, as Premier Smith had said, to Saskatchewan being very much a contributing province to within a united nation of Canada. And I think that really ties into some of the work that we see in the communique here today. You've seen Saskatchewan come out and ask for some regulatory shift from the federal government. And really some of that unconsulted policy is at the very heart of some of the alienation that Saskatchewan residents are feeling and how it impacts the industries that create wealth for Saskatchewan families and Saskatchewan communities. Some of the work you see here today in conversation around infrastructure, whether it be approving private sector investments, whether it be in the mining, in the energy industries, doing our level best to become an energy superpower as the aspirations of Prime Minister Carney are. or whether it be in the needed public infrastructure that is required, whether it be directly into some of our port operations, port infrastructure, or some of the transportation infrastructure into those ports, so that we can be the reliable supplier that Canada, I think, would aspire to continue to be. Some of the work around this table with respect to opening up the New West Partnership to not only all provinces but territories, to really rip down those any of those interprovincial hindrances or hurdles that we might have in free and open trade, procurement, as well as labor mobility across the nation. But I would say that this conversation around port-to-port access and really creating access for the European and Asian markets for a significant portion of Canadian goods, access to those European and Asian markets for mine products, for rare earth and critical minerals that are looking at, there's many entities looking at investments throughout northern Canada. The connecting through a corridor of some of our northwest ports with potential ports in Hudson Bay, and how you could build off that core piece of infrastructure to really add to our Arctic security, connecting maybe an Arctic port down the way, or even further connecting that core corridor infrastructure, that port-to-port connection out into areas in eastern Canada as well. And, therein lies, I think, the opportunity for each of us as Canadians is, to work together to enhance the economic opportunities that we have through discussions just like what happened here today. And I would commend our chair, RJ, for navigating, and steering those discussions to I think, a better spot, not only on behalf of Western and Northern jurisdictions in Canada, but what is good and is going to economically improve the situation in Western and Northern provinces and territories, ultimately is good for Canada as well, and is going to strengthen Canada when it comes to all of the metrics, whether it be GDP per capita or whatever that might be. And so I was really excited in what I think is the start of a generationally beneficial discussion around connecting connecting tidewaters, really, in Canada, connecting the Hudson Bay, the opportunities that might be available in Hudson Bay to the northwestern ports through a defined corridor that is going to allow us to share the resources not only with one another across Canada, but really allow us with those resources, which is the source of our wealth, to access wherever you live, either the Asian or the European markets. And when you look ahead at the opportunities that Canada has, those markets are critical for that. And so thank you, RJ, or Premier Simpson, as I officially should call you, for navigating that discussion here. I think it was an important discussion to have, and I think it's the start of a very strategic nation-building project that, I hope is part of the discussion at the FMM table in a couple of weeks, and I hope it's a part of the discussion as we move forward at future FMM meetings and Council of Federation meetings as well.
I'd like to jump in here. For me, and the feeling I had around the table is that all the premiers recognize that this is the moment for Western Canada, that we are going to be the engine that drives the Canadian economy for the foreseeable future. And that if we're going to realize our potential, if we're going to ensure that we realize the vision and the responsibility, frankly, to all Canadians that comes with that series of opportunities that are in front of us right now, we have to work together. And there is no worse time for us to get dragged into conversations about splitting up the country or this kind of thing than right now, when in front of us is all this amazing opportunity. I was so honored to be a part of this table at this moment with these premiers that all see the opportunity. And when you look at this communique and the work that we did together, and everybody agreeing and understanding the moment in front of us, whether it's around national security or whether it's around energy or whether it's around resources or whatever it is, we're working together, and we're working together for Canadians, and made me profoundly proud.
And just going to add as well, just say I feel very privileged to have been here. Just want to thank my good friend RJ for welcoming us to the beautiful capital city here, to Yellowknife. What a moment that we're in. And I feel very privileged to be able to serve with all the premiers here. As we are in a moment as a country,
Aren't we all privileged?
we've really been debating what we could do to really become the economic powerhouse as a country that we do. And I think the West has so much potential. I look to the corridor discussion we had that really could be nation building, where you see infrastructure come up through the Arctic Security Corridor to open up even more markets, whether you're looking at Asia or whether you're looking at Europe. But it's also about asserting your sovereignty over the Arctic. So there's a real moment that we're in as a country. But as Western premiers, I feel very fortunate to have the support of every one of us here to really bring forward a vision that sees our big role by bringing big projects that are bold and transformative, that really will benefit all Canadians from coast to coast to coast. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done just in the last 2 days. But I think now is the time for Canada to invest. And we very much look forward to seeing concrete references come through the throne speech that talk about the actual movement of these big projects that we've been talking about. Many have been on the books for decades. And I feel very that we are very close to be able to really unlocking the true economic potential that we all have within our jurisdictions. So, yeah, thank you so much, RJ.
I think as everybody jumps in, look, first of all, RJ, thank you for hosting and doing such a great job. And it's always a pleasure to be able to spend any time in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. I'm just going to add on to my colleagues. Look, I think that we all, there's a sentiment throughout Western Canada about the need to have that level of support, respect, investment. Look, as Northerners here in the room, I think everybody understands that there's been a gap in investment through all three territories for a long period of time. And again, I'm going to echo it because it's important. It's an opportunity to seize a moment right now. When you think about the work that this table has focused on around reconciliation, it is foundational to everything we talk about as territories and Western provinces. And the nation building conversation we've been having for years. I mean, we're lucky because we've been building over the last number of years on the economic corridor conversation, having it ready. What's exciting is the fact that now we see the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister understanding how important that is. And we see the commitment that's been made in the platform, but we are closely watching how that will translate, as PJ said, into the throne speech, and what will be the early commitments. This is not something that can be done over decades. We have to see movement now, and I think that will give a strong feeling to Northerners and Western Canadians that the whole country's behind them, and that's what's going to be really important. And when we sat down today, it is overwhelming to understand the economic potential off the West, many as in the North. But we have a lot of projects that are just on the cusp. We just need to make sure that they get over those last regulatory hurdles, and they're going to be incredibly important as we go through the next couple of years and we deal with the tariff threats that we're going to be dealing with. So again, RJ, thanks for an incredible job the last couple of days, and it's always an absolute honor to be at the table with with my colleagues.
Thank you, Premiers. Next, I'd like to call on Jim Elliott with Yukon News. You have a question online, please direct it. One question, one follow-up.
Yes, thank you. Am I being heard in the room there?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We heard some discussion about a territorial trade zone between the three territories earlier this month. Has that concept been refined at all at this meeting, and can you share some details on what was discussed?
I can start. Yeah, that's work that came out of Northern Premiers a few weeks ago. And first, I'll just say to the media, it's really a way for us to make sure that we have the uniqueness of trade in the North recognized across the country. We have a federal government that has been committed to making sure they reduce barriers. It's a conversation that's been happening a long time from coast to coast to coast between territories and provinces. But we have a very unique situation between the three territories and in our territories in that we have the highest concentration of modern treaties, and we have very specific elements of commerce that happen and agreements and relationships that are within our treaties, and they're actually anchored within the Constitution of the country. So we can't make a unilateral decision about removing a certain exception without sitting down with Indigenous governments and figuring out what's best for all Northerners and to have that advisement from nations. So we're looking at the ability to identify that uniqueness, remove the barriers. We talked today, which was great, about the great work that's been done between BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And they've opened up the door for us with flexibility and respect to the North for us to sign on to the Western trade agreement that's in place. And so I think, my sense from my colleagues from the other territories and ourselves from the Yukon that's something that we think is important. So we made significant progress in the conversation today around this Northern and Western trade relationship, but also we'll be looking to speak with the federal government when it comes to the trade zone, because as Northerners, what we've always seen is economic activity, for the most part, moving north-south. We need to see economic activity as well, moving east-west. We want to see, in the Yukon, we want to be able to fly to Yellowknife every week and to do business. And we want to be able to fly to Iqaluit and then through the territories. And what's really going to help us when it comes to sovereignty in this country is being able to have that movement and more growth and more stronger relationships across all three territories. So a lot of that work, Jim's being, it's going to depend on what the federal government's willing to commit with us as we remove exemptions, how they're going to help us evolve and mature the economy across the three territories. But today was pretty exciting being able to sit down with Western counterparts and then have another ability to move goods in a smoother way and to help grow the economy, not just through the West, but through the North.
Thank you, Premier. I'd like to move on to Sydney Cohen from CBC. Sydney, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is for Premier Simpson. Just on the trade piece again, will you ask for any NWT exemptions or special considerations in any Canadian trade deal? Like, will you protect BIP? Will you make sure that stays in any internal trade deal? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. Trade is a major topic these days, and we're involved. Actually, the Northwest Territories is chairing the Committee on Internal Trade, and so we are heavily involved in those discussions. One thing that we've raised time and time again, and Premier Pillay just spoke about it, is the fact that the North is different. We're 40% of Canada, and we're the population of a small city. We have geographical issues, and we also have, as was mentioned, modern treaties that we need to uphold and that we will uphold. And so some of those exemptions are related to those modern treaties. We're also in a situation where, because we're a small economy, we're a developing economy. And so we need to ensure that when we're spending money in the North, that it's benefiting Northerners. We're not opposed to inviting companies from other parts in Canada to come up here and do business and work, but we need to make sure that we have the ability to support local businesses so that we don't just become a colony for the rest of Canada. And so we're committed to doing that. Thank you.
I maybe make just a comment on interprovincial and territorial trade across Canada, and I really we'll start with the Canada Free Trade Agreement that we have, which all parties are signatory to, and there's a number of exemptions and a number of exclusions in that particular agreement, whether it be the federal government, a province, or a territory. Within and underneath that umbrella of the Canada Free Trade Agreement, we have the New West Partnership, of which the four Western provinces are a signatory of, and it really is a gold standard of free, open, not only trade, but procurement rules as well, and labor mobility, I think, is part of that agreement as well. And it's really is the initial agreement in which the Canada Free Trade Agreement was based on. The New West Partnership is the gold standard, and that's why, as in light of recent discussions around, how do we open up and reduce any interprovincial or territorial barriers that we have, whilst recognizing and allowing our northern territories, which are unique, to be able to protect some of the priorities that they have within their region. And I don't think anyone is going to say that some of the conversations that territories are going to have in this space are very different than any of the provinces should, would, or could have. And so what we did today was opened up the opportunity for all provinces to join the New West Partnership. And become a signatory to that gold standard agreement, and then also open that up to the territories. However, in the territories case, each of whether it be Yukon, Nunavut, or Northwest Territories, it would take a little bit of work, in fairness, to look at some of the uniqueness that they have for them, and there would be some understanding for them to enter that agreement, that there would be some exemption and exclusions that they would want to have a look at. And I think the four host provinces of the New West Partnership are more than willing to look at that and to open up what has really been the gold standard in trade agreements to all 10 provinces across Canada.
Thank you, Premiers. Next, I'd like to ask online Richard Zussman from Global News BC. Go ahead, Richard.
To that point that Premier Moe was just making to Premier Eby, as you prepare as premiers to head to the First Minister's meeting, how much of a conversation will be had about staff or personnel HR mobility amongst provinces? Is there a commitment from Western provinces here not to, in essence, poach each other's healthcare workers, teachers, as the West tries to put forward a unified front here as the economic driver of the national economy?
Thanks, Richard. Our goal as the government of British Columbia is to minimize barriers for professionals being able to work across Canada. We think that there's huge value that comes to all Canadians when professionals of any background, including medical professionals, are able to move freely across the country. If a province has an excess of teachers, for example, British Columbia right now, we're recruiting teachers. It's helpful for us to be able to recognize those credentials right away and get people to work and support kids in classrooms. We're all currently recruiting healthcare professionals, but our focus is on recruiting healthcare professionals from other jurisdictions. So, for example, right now in British Columbia, we've had great success recruiting doctors and nurses from the United States. Our numbers of nurses applying, for example, is up 177%, and they're able to get to work right away in our province in a matter of days once submitting all the necessary documents that are required by the college. And so all of us are working on that kind of thing. We're actually sharing tips about where the opportunities are to recruit these healthcare professionals. We're very competitive jurisdictions in terms of pay and quality of life for medical professionals here, so it's not a competitive thing. What we know is that we'll be able to drive down the costs of daily life for British Columbians if they are able to access a more competitive environment for professional services. And that is true across Canada. Our infrastructure costs will come down. And we can't afford as Canadians to pay this extra tax of red tape and delay as people try to move between provinces and territories. I understand that there are going to need to be special protections for some jurisdictions like the territories. But for BC's perspective, we're all in on making sure that there's mobility of professionals across the country.
Thank you, Premier. Next I have on my list Jack Farrell with Canadian Press. Go ahead, Jack. Jack, go ahead. You have the mic. Okay, we'll move on. If Jack's not available, we'll do another local question if Sydney Cohen has a question.
You can give another local media an opportunity.
Certainly. Let's call on TJ Deere from CBC Iqaluit. TJ Deere from CBC Iqaluit, if you're online, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hey, can you guys hear me in the room?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is for Premier Akiagok. There's been a lot of talk today about nation-building projects to open up trade routes both domestically and internationally. What sort of other conversations were had that will have a direct impact on Nunavut? And if you could answer in both English and Inuktitut, please.
Yeah, thank you, TJ, for that question. It's been great to be around the table here. As I mentioned, we are at a moment we've really been working very strategically with Inuit organizations, in this case Nunavut Tungavik, to identify nation-building projects where it has Indigenous consent, but also has the backing of government, at all levels of government. So during our conversations here, it's great to get the support as we are starting to see the push around what we could do to diversify our economies. Specifically, I look to the Arctic Security Corridor, which is the Grays Bay Road and Port, identified right in the communique, where we do see that as an incredible moment where we could open up corridors that allow the Western provinces and territories to link to market the potential wealth, but also unlocking the critical minerals that we know that are there, and that could assert Canada's sovereignty around our energy that we have. So from that angle, it was great to be able to have deeper discussions around that project, but also to be able to work with Premier Canoe as we advance the Kivadlik Hydro Fiber Link, which we know is really an exciting nation-building moment. We just signed the intent to work together to really carve out the 50 megawatt that was needed for us to then advance. But what we need right now is investments from Canada, and I'm really hopeful that the throne speech will bring positive advancements to these really important nation-building moments that we see, and then subsequently for us to be able to have those discussions at the upcoming First Ministers meeting, which will highlight the nation-building projects that we all are coming forward with. Tana inun asuara yau simayo angitau simayon piyau yumayon pilaga padliagata amma tamakko gavamakko adjiging itunen pilaga padliana atluta naluna sivadlia simagata takwa sivulatu katika kwasimagata tana Grace Bay on ratau yo tautuga yau yo tulatarve amma akotikutangu wayato adjiging itunen makipadlarun narutigi yatinun tautuga yau simamman Nirutiapugutan, I can sort of what learning, Pingo Padliagun Namninga, Saki Padliaman, Tavuna Titakakun, Saki Katigun, Kisian, Nirupugun, Government of Takua, Ikayun Namnakudlugin, Pilaria Yagumashimayunin, Pivadlianated Lutra, Asinga, Taina Kivadome, Ukalrenomon, Ukausapadiang in Natlatara, Takoyan Namapunga, Civil to Hatiga, Premier Canoe, Katujahat.
I'm not sure if I'm going to include this or edit this out. Oh my goodness.
Tigidluta, Nalunersi Malrata, Kidraktet Lutigun, Takwa, Ukalrenomon, Ikumakutinon, Piawayatan. So Tamakwataba, Ayaw to Latang in Naratigon, Makipadron Nakodluta Kanatame, Kisianitakwa, Civulutilima, Ikayokatigitia, Lumimutikitugun, Nirutiapu, Pingmoktown Yarning in the Tavanitia.
Thank you, Premier.
Now you've got that off your chest.
Time for one last question, and I'll go to online. Roheen Mohammed from the National Post. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone can hear me fine?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
This question's for Premier Eby. Premier Eby, I'm glad you're sitting next to Premier Smith. I wanted to get your thoughts on her suggestion that not only we revive the Northern Gateway pipeline, but we fast track it. Do you agree with this notion? And do you think we should prioritize building heavy oil pipelines to deep water ports in northern British Columbia as part of diversifying our exports away from the United States?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, I'm glad to be sitting beside Premier Smith as well. The discussion at the table and reflected in the communique was focused on points of agreement. And those points of agreement are that we need an economic corridor that accesses the ports in the northwest of British Columbia and the ports or port sites on Hudson's Bay. And that in between there are all kinds of products and commodities produced that need to be moved along those corridors through pipes, by rail, through wires. And the goal of the conversation was to say, look, we can all work together in delivering this corridor I know that Danielle's priority is to get heavy oil to Tidewater. She is very unambiguous about that. My priority is to get BC electricity to as many places as possible to help decarbonize and to drive our economy in British Columbia. Every one of these premiers has their own priorities. And we recognize in this moment, as Canadians, we've got to work together. And
we've got to work together on decarbonizing our very environmentally friendly country.
We've got to work together in a moment of crisis where we're being directly threatened by the leader of one of the most powerful countries in the world, the most powerful country in the world. And so we're all working together. We're finding ways to cooperate. If Premier Smith is able to convince the federal government to build another pipeline through British Columbia or a private proponent, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Right now, we know there needs to be this corridor. We have $50 billion plus in projects with proponents in British Columbia that would benefit from this corridor. I know that all the premiers have similar projects, and that's the work we're doing.
In a similar vein, would you support a reversal of the federal moratorium on oil tanker traffic along British Columbia's northern coast?
Well, in British Columbia, we have a pipeline that's publicly owned that was put through over the objections of British Columbia, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, and it is not operating at capacity. If the urgency is to get product to Tidewater, then I would start there with the conversations with the federal government about ensuring that this publicly owned infrastructure is used to its full capacity. And that seems like a great place to start rather than opening up the pristine North Coast to tanker traffic. These are my personal feelings as a Premier of British Columbia. I know that Premier Smith has a different perspective about that, and that's okay. We're going to work together, and we're going to come to the ultimate destination of a stronger, united, sovereign Canada that stands on our own 2 feet, and it will be through difficult discussions around tables like this. And all of us are committed.
Not a David Eby fan right here. Guy's a fraud.
To working constructively together, and we will find that path forward.
And I might just add that we're kind of an all of the above sort of province. We'd like to see infrastructure built north, south, east, and west. I am greatly encouraged by the conversation we had today, especially when it comes down to finding areas of common interest. Obviously, I'd like to see pipelines built, but we had really constructive conversations about interties built so that we could have electricity coming back and forth from Manitoba all the way through to British Columbia and back again. And when you look at the rail line, there's just such an extraordinary opportunity for all of the provinces to export all of our products out of the Port of Prince Rupert. It already exports 30 million tons a year. I think they have a plan to grow to triple or quintuple that. It is the best access to get all of our products, food and fiber, manufactured goods, to the Asian markets in a way that's faster than the Americans can do. The Americans have to go through we've been debating if it's Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, but either way, whichever you want to call it, it takes 55 days to get to Asia. So we have a major advantage already in having those direct routes. And so building on our successes, I think, is going to be important. What I like about Grays Bay is that gives us an opportunity to look both to the eastern markets as well as looking to the western markets in Europe. And so to be able to have those conversations where we can find those common areas of interest, I think is very important. And I think that we'll be able to find a lot of common ground. One of the things that we have suggested to Prime Minister Carney is that if we can couple a discussion about a new bitumen pipeline with the Pathways project, which wants to decarbonize bitumen, then I think we can address some of the issues of concern that various stakeholders have raised. Because as people may or may not know, there's a lot of uses of bitumen. There's 6,000 products that can be made from a barrel of bitumen, including asphalt. And so if you have a decarbonized bitumen that is not being used for combustion purposes, then it's a construction material. So I think that there are ways for us to be able to have the conversation, address the issues that we've heard of, and be able to work on increasing the level of support publicly for all of those projects.
I would just add in that all of the above approach. Herein lies the opportunity for a new prime minister And I think the opportunity for each of us and other subnational leaders to work together in Canadians' best interests. If you look at where we've been, from a productivity perspective, an economic productivity perspective, we have some challenges over the last number of years, as the Canadian economy does have. If you look at where we've been more recently with respect to our relationship with our largest trading partner, we've heard, much in the way of we need to diversify trade, we need to move trade away from the United States. Well, that simply isn't going to happen easily, and it isn't going to happen overnight, and it likely isn't going to happen. However, as we grow our economy, we do have the opportunity to diversify that growth to other markets. When you look at the mandate letter that was provided by the Prime Minister to his federal ministers, it's very much focused on building a strong economy on behalf of all Canadians. It's also very much focused on building new infrastructure at speeds not seen before, infrastructure to diversify our trading relationship and to become an energy superpower. And so it needs to be an all of the above approach when it comes to products. And I can't think of a more nation-building project than starting to connect ports in the northwestern portion of British Columbia in our nation to ports at Hudson Bay, and ultimately with the conversation around Arctic security, and credit to the three northern premiers, and in particular to Premier Akiago, on the groundwork that he has done with respect to accessing potentially an Arctic port down the way as well. And so if we truly are looking to expand our economic prowess, become an energy superpower as a nation, it is going to have to include lithium, for example, from Saskatchewan, of which there was just an investment this week in a processing facility, the first of its kind in our province, and I believe across Canada. It's going to have to include the conversation around nuclear and Saskatchewan-based uranium and powering the world with that product. It's going to have to include, and if you think of the area between those two places, Hudson Bay and northern British Columbia, there is significant hydro capacity in that space as well, which provides opportunities to help Saskatchewan, Western Canada, and ultimately our nation become an energy superpower. But it's also going to have to include the conversation around oil and gas, which ultimately is a significant portion of the Canadian economy. And so as we move forward, if we truly are serious about increasing economic productivity in Canada, truly committed to as a nation and working alongside one another's subnational, national leaders together in achieving that status of being an energy superpower, it is going to have to be all of the products. And it is going to have to be a level effort on not only regulatory reform, but looking at truly nation-building projects like this port-to-port corridor that is going to connect our markets, our Canadian markets of Asia, as well as the European market. Can you imagine having a mine site in Nunavut that has access to either the European market, but also would have access to the Asian market just as simply with that type of a connective corridor. And so this is a generational opportunity, I would say, and a Canadian opportunity as we move forward, and I was very pleased to be part of the conversations in that today.
And I might just add as well an opportunity for economic reconciliation too, which we've been very proud of in Alberta with our Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. We've already underwritten about $700 million worth of projects, many of them energy projects, whether it's electricity generation or pipelines, where Indigenous communities are able to receive a dividend over time by owning an equity stake. Over the lifetime of the projects we've underwritten, it'll bring $1.2 billion to the communities that have been signatories to those agreements. The federal government has a similar plan. I believe that Saskatchewan and British Columbia also have a similar type of loan guarantee program. And I think that's also going to be something that's quite unique about this discussion, is that Indigenous ownership is going to be central in any of these big projects, being able to successfully go ahead and to generate new income and new wealth for those communities.
Thank you, Premiers. I'd like to give last word to Premier Simpson if he has a brief closing. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. I want to thank my Premier colleagues for coming to Yellowknife, visiting our beautiful territory, and bringing forward their thoughts. I think that the country is facing a lot of challenges right now, external challenges, but they don't measure up to the opportunities we have in this country. And the discussions we've had over the past 2 days have really reinforced that with me. the wealth, the natural resource wealth in the West is unbelievable. We're talking trillions of dollars of wealth here, and we're at a moment where Canada, the federal government, recognizes that to access that wealth for the benefit of Canadians, they need to make investments in infrastructure. So at this table, we're ready to meet that moment. We're ready to do our parts and advance that infrastructure. And now we just need the federal government to step up and for the Prime Minister to really do what he said he's going to do. He's saying all the right things, and I look forward to our first ministers' meeting in the coming weeks so that we can have that conversation and really confirm his intentions and move together as provinces and as a federal government together. Thank you.
Thank you, Premiers. For members online, the communique will be posted within the hour on the KIC site, and the photos will be available from the press secretary. If there's scrum questions, I'll let members of the media set them up with their jurisdictions.
All right, guys, so we'll wrap it up right there. Some interesting premiers, like they talk about the 51st state. I'd worry about Alberta being its own country rather than a state. We'll see. My name's Aaron, Canadian Looney. Thank you for watching the video. We'll catch you next time. Canadian politics are wild, guys. No doubt. Catch you next video.